on this show is two things. Number one, the structure of the financial side of our economy is not structured to take highest interest rates. We've been sucking on the easy money from, Christopher Leonard's book, brilliant book, Lords of Easy Money. The apparatus and the elites have been living off this, and the whole structure of it is not ready to have increasing interest rates. You're going to see the perturbations, and the collateral damage is going to be you, the American people. Remember, because you're paying for it. That's what these deficits are. It's a scam. The full faith and credit of the United States of America is not Goldman Sachs, not Morgan Stanley, not First Boston, not J.P. Morgan, and not the elites that run it. And it ain't the Oracle of Omaha. It's not George Soros. It's you, the American people. The firemen, the cops, the teachers, the nurses, those of you that coach Little League and support our churches, you're the full faith and credit of the United States. This is all on your shoulders, and you're about to get hit by a blowtorch. And everyone is lying to you, starting with the Republican Party that's now going to have this bipartisan, we're coming together to get this budget, this appropriations bill. It's got another massive increase to defense spending. And look, I was a serving naval officer. My daughter went to West Point. We're as pro-defense as you can get. This is madness. This is insanity. And Thomas Piketty, the radical communist author of this theory, is at National Defense University, and worse than that, he's lecturing how we got to kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party. That's where we are as a nation, and we're not going to stand for it. We're standing in the breach, and we're beating it. But I'm telling you, there is going to be an accountability time that those that did this to the American people are going to be held accountable.
The New York Times reports that nearly 24 Republican election deniers are now running for Secretary of State across the country to oversee elections. In order to counter this, one group is doing something about it. If you watch the show over the years, you've heard of the grassroots organization Run for Something. The group, launched 5 years ago at the start of the Trump administration, works to recruit and help elect first-time candidates to state and local races across the country.
In other words, what they're doing is they're trying to mitigate for actual citizens that are not vetted by the establishment to run. And that goes for both parties.
And since their launch, they have recruited thousands of people to consider running and elected nearly 650 candidates to local offices across the country. And this year, they are going after election deniers, the ones who want to take control of elections.
Again, here we are. They want to take control of who is in your local offices in every single state. And they're going after people they don't agree with, people that denied the Russia hoax. Yet the Russia hoax was indeed a conspiracy cooked up by the Democrats and the rhinos. So they get to decide, these people, with their money and who's funding Run for Something. That's a question everyone should be asking. So they're funding to put people in key administration roles, not you, the people. It's who they decide they agree with.
Across the country. But they're not just focused on the big name Secretary of State races. They are also recruiting and supporting candidates for local election administration roles, so as to box out extremists looking to secure those positions.
Extremists like the ones that said that it was a Russia hoax and there was no Russian collusion. Extremists like the ones that said the elections were stolen. Extremists. That's key. New word, extremist. So now the establishment and the media get to decide who represents you. And I'm going to let you in on how they are deciding.
And here is why. This is from the group's 2020 plan. Quote, "These are the positions that will determine whether or not democracy survives past 2024. Practically, local election administrators quite literally determine how elections are run. We're planning for both wide and targeted recruitment, staffing up to run a cohort program specifically for these candidates and investing in support for folks both before and after Election Day to ensure they're ready to do the job and handle the pushback they might experience."
In other words, they'll train them to do what they want, and then they will handle them while they're in office. I hope you are paying attention.
These positions have the bully pulpit. The people who take it can use it for good and to restore faith and trust in the system and build and bring transparency to the electoral process. Or they can use that same bully pulpit to undermine democracy itself. Joining us now is Amanda Littman, co-founder and co-executive director of Run for Something. Ms. Littman, thank you for being here tonight. Great to have you. So
Thanks for having me.
Let's just talk first about how these election conspiracy candidates, QAnon, time travelers.
That was a reference to me. See, people are too simple to understand. Time travel is a fun way to state predictive analytics. That's a real thing. And coupled with quantum computing, you'll be surprised how far out it can predict. I guess they don't want people that are, string theorists, right? They don't like people that are smart, and they don't like people that lay it out as it is. So they mock the term because people are too simple to understand what it actually means.
And so forth, the ones who are running for election administration posts, how have they shifted your focus? Do you feel like you need to offer your potential candidates extra support or resourcing or training to combat the misinformation that is out there?
Combat misinformation, kind of like how they told us that masks on our children were for health reasons, but turns out it was the Department of Treasury that told the world No. The schools only got money if they masked the kids. Conspiracy theory, kind of like the Russia hoax, the election theft. So everything the mainstream media, aka the propaganda, aka your fourth unelected branch of government, having these discussions is a conspiracy theory. Well, let's be honest. The conspiracy theories so far have panned out true. We're actually running out of them. Now, let me tell you what is going on. I had mentioned in a previous show about a month or two ago, that I would run if no one capable of running would run. And I was toying with the idea of throwing my hat in the race, so I watched. Now, as we know, a lot of Democrats have resigned, and the evident turncoats are being turned on by their own only because they will not garner the vote. So I live in the state of Ohio. I actually kind of love it. Now, let me let you in on this little clip. Here you go. I mean, if I was running for Secretary of State in a state that was a contested one, I'd run on the thing, hey, elect me and I'll decertify the elections. And that includes me too. We need people with balls and waiting for elections and this and that isn't really going to work. We need to start having serious and uncomfortable conversations about elections, serious and uncomfortable conversations about what we think the parties stand for. Because, I've said this again and again and again. The Democrats didn't steal the election for President Trump. The Republicans did.
I want to know more about your theories on that. That's an interesting hypothesis and not inconsistent with.
Well, you and I both know conversations that were had in the White House by Republicans with the president. Now tell me, with that statement, how does that not make sense?
There was definitely sabotage from within. I had 2 months swimming around on the outside of the Trump administration, staying in the Trump hotel, staffers coming and going, me befriending some of them, meeting some for dinners, this, that, eventually getting invited in. I got to know a dozen people around them and hearing a lot of thoughts from different directions from people who were working in the administration and in the White House. And I got a pretty clear picture. There's no question that he was completely betrayed from within. I felt so sorry for him.
This whole election fraud machine was created by a Republican.
Who?
Bush.
That's an interesting hypothesis, given how he's behaved.
It's actually fact. I know it. I say it and I know it, and I would put my life on it, and because I was there. So
tell me about Bush's involvement.
Bush actually funded his administration, his Pentagon funded the software.
Not the Pentagon did, huh?
Yeah. The Pentagon did it.
And
then they sold it. They didn't sell it. They closed down that division and gave it to the State Department. So let me clarify. In 2004, the Pentagon had a program going, the Department of Defense, basically. And Richard Gates, a former CIA director, and Paul Brinkley were heads of that. That program ceased after a year, and the company was called Seidel USA. That program was then transferred to the State Department. And I can't speak to classified information, but those of you that have read my affidavit in regards to election fraud, just scroll down to where I've screenshot the Ukraine aid package. Speaking of Ukraine, in Ohio, did you guys know that the Secretary of State of Ohio in 2019 was in Ukraine observing elections, right? And who's the one with all the sources in Ukraine? That's right, it's me. Funny. Why would a Secretary of State of a state be in a foreign country observing elections that were won by a landslide by 75%? Demonstrating the new methods of voting, maybe? But I digress. So, this actually exists. I have not just come out on the scene with the 2020 elections. 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, and 2015, I have been talking about election fraud from the get-go. I have approached various Secretary of States of numerous states and advised them of how they can minimize the risk. And all of them were citing things like Title IV or, oh, I'll get back to you on that. Well, here's what I did. I decided to run. On the 18th of January, I made the decision to file my declaration of candidacy, which you see here on the screen. Here, it has my declaration officially done. Each petition that we circulated was circulated with this obvious page, and signatures were then had, and that was it. We actually went a step further in my campaign. Instead of just asking for a signature and an address, which is very remedial, what we did was I wanted to demonstrate to all of the Secretary of States across the nation with a campaign move. Here was what I was going to do. I was going to take my sheet that had the printed name and other questions to show, one, the efficiency and how it helped the Board of Elections, the Board of Electors in each county actually verify the signatures. See, after I would have submitted them, I would have sent out a survey to them, and that was estimated to go out on March 1st, and request them to answer if my petitions were a lot easier for them to verify signatures or not. Because right now, that's one little tidbit that we need to fix, how signatures are collected. Well, so I did everything by the book. I had my declaration, I collected the signatures, and I know they were a bit scared. Why? Because we only started collecting signatures, I think it was January 20th. And by January 31st, I had more than enough signatures that were actually vetted by me and my team to submit. So in the end, after filtering out signatures that we could not validate with the voter rolls of 2020, I said, hey, 1,767 signatures is more than enough since the limit is 1,000, considering that statistically, the changes between the 2020 voter roll and the 2021 voter roll would only be about 25%. Well, I did everything perfectly. And every year, there's a chapter that is written. There's a chapter that people go by, right? It's the election manuals, election official manuals that you can see here on your screen. Well, it just so happened that after everyone submitted their petition forms to the Secretary of State on February 2nd in the evening, they added a new section. To ensure all voters receive properly updated voter-initiated activity dates, boards must check and verify each signature on an otherwise valid part petition, even if a candidate or issue meets the required number of signatures to gain ballot access. So this was added in on February 2nd after every candidate across the state of Ohio submitted their petitions. I submitted mine on the 31st of January. Now, as I said, I created a petition that was a lot easier to read, and it was a lot more efficient, which you can see here. Now, as you can see, I've blacked out the information because that information is, private identifying information. There's the printed name, the signature, the address, and the date they signed. As you can see, the form is long ways, and at the end, it has the circulator's statement. But obviously, every time you circulate a petition, you have a declaration of candidacy right there for them to see. Well, on the day that I arrived to submit my signatures, I had my team with me. One of them was visibly recording. The other one was stealthily recording. I met with two attorneys at the Secretary of State's office. They took one of my declaration forms because I had all the declaration forms for every single county that I collected signatures for. They were all copies, of course. And the one with the wet signature, I took and he took, and then he had me fill out a document of how I wanted my name spelled on the ballot, which is exactly like this. This is my declaration of candidacy. I paid my $150 fee. Now, after we did all that paperwork downstairs, we went upstairs to the legal department. I sat down, I took this very nice picture, and I was very excited and really glad I wore waterproof mascara. The lawyers left with my declaration of candidacy and the other document they had me sign and took $150 from me and gave me a receipt. They gave me back those documents stapled with the receipt, and I said, thank you. Is there anything else I need to provide? No. What I provided them was a batch of documents. Each county had their signature separate and then a batch of declarations of candidacy forms. That way, instead of us just nominating that that's the county and it just going somewhere wrong, we put them there for them to collate correctly because they're going to go through it anyway. And mistakes happen, especially when you have hundreds upon hundreds of pages. That's their job anyway. They're supposed to take the petitions. They're supposed to check which counties they are. They're supposed to put them together with the declaration page and send it off to the counties. I was very confident. In fact, my team got to work immediately. They called every single county, and I only went to 68 out of the 88. And we called them all to see how many were verified. So during the week, they were verifying signatures. And in fact, I was correct. The maximum amount of signatures that were removed from any petition was 10, and one for 9, and the other ones were ranging between 1, 2, or 3, which is about the average of move. So those 10 and 9 ones seem a little bit iffy and off statistics, but that's math stuff. Well, lo and behold, on Friday, February 11th, after the end of the close of business day, and it's actually the last day before February 14th, when each county has to submit back the validated signatures, the assistant of the Secretary of State, the deputy assistant, her name is Amanda. She sent out an email. Now listen to this email. Candidate petitions. Many counties ask the elections divisions for guidance when a candidate omits a declaration of candidacy from a form used for gathering signatures. That's curious. Ohio law permits the candidate to sign one original part petition, then gather signatures with photocopies of that original part petition. However, it explicitly requires that the declaration of candidacy so signed shall be copied on each other separate petition paper before the signature, sick electors placed on it, blah, 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 moreover, Supreme Court. See, that's funny. My declaration of candidacy was there, and it was only the one page, and then it was a continuous one, but it was one page and then the petitioner page, right? That you see here. So what's odd is that on February 11th, after close of business, because most of these, the county electors close at 4, that email was sent out. In fact, they told them that they need to return all of them, right? If your board questions the validity or invalidity of part petition received, please consult with your county prosecutor. Well, they were told, right, that the Secretary of State sent the directive to invalidate all the signatures. Now, that's really weird. If I've submitted that documentation with my packet and it was up to them to send it off, how is it that suddenly all my signatures are invalid because of that one missing document? It's really funny. It seems that they split up the tasks, or maybe someone was doing some of them, because a few counties actually got it. This document over here is from one specific county, which clearly says copy. Another county phoned up and said, hey, the declaration of candidacy page is missing. Can you verify that there's a candidacy form on file? Because we've never seen this before. They were like, oh yeah, it's on file. That happened all week. And then they tell them, just dump them. See, this is what they do when they don't want people running. They do you dirty. I had everything in order. I actually made it easy. You're not allowed to staple documents, and their document is not transparent and does not inspire us for election transparency and voter integrity. But here's the thing. Frank LaRose, who's running with all his myriad of issues, taking money from Facebook, putting in mail-in ballots, changing the dates without permission from the legislature, being in Ukraine. Oh my gosh, the list goes on, right? They're going to do anything. But this is preposterous. You change the rules after the fact, and then you reinforce it again at the end, at the nth hour. So yesterday, I get an email late at night from the same lady telling me, yeah, so your signatures were invalidated. So you're not on the ballot. I was like, what? So today I get notified that I can contest it. And guess what? I am. I'm going to file it with the Secretary of State and say, wow, that's really funny. You know, when I'm Secretary of State, I'm going to make it a crime when you mess with petitions like that, because we can't have that happen. See, I'm glad many people have said this. I'm glad it happened to you, Tori, because you're actually going to fight it. Other people wouldn't. They'd just be like, whatever. With many people that I spoke with, they said, oh, it's not the first time. They never want people from the outside. Kind of sounds like the Democrat organization we were listening to earlier that picks and chooses candidates and then handles them throughout their career, right? To do what they want according to the values they have. Not the values of the constituents, but the values that they represent, right? Which is not the constituent values. Now, you know what's funny? I had a show the other day where I was telling everyone how so many Democrats have resigned. And I said, please, don't forget, when they resign, we get the real rhinos coming in. So now at the GOP, there's like a big fight. They don't want Frank LaRose because he's hurting the party. But then they're going to slip in another rhino who's been a state legislator, was a state legislator for over a decade. The guy also sat on the board multiple times of an organization that funds Black Lives Matter and the AFL-CIO. And as we know, the AFL-CIO was the one that funded Black Lives Matter Plaza, the riots, and gloated to the fact that they trained their postal workers. Oh, that's right. How did they commit the fraud? See, it all makes sense when you step back. So here's what I'm going to do. I actually found an attorney, right? That's local. And I'm filing my protest to their amended rules after I filed. That is so corrupt. That is so corrupt. Who says you can get away with that? That is such a misuse of office. So I'm filing the protest, and then I'm going to file in the Supreme Court. Now, considering that the Supreme Court has been very lenient on ballot challenges, right? This is just them to take money that I don't have to go to court because they know your financial situation. Unlike many that think I'm swimming in cash, they actually know. So I take it to the Supreme Court, and it's almost a 99% chance that I'm on because they changed the rules after the fact. And they made sure that the candidate in question, which was me, was the one targeted because they didn't have a problem with other candidates. You know, they're not part of the party. But, you know, their problem is if she can collect 1,700 valid signatures in 10 days from 68 counties, we're screwed. And that's true. And if she, who has 500,000 podcast listeners, starts campaign financing, which, by the way, I still haven't been able to find a platform that will allow me to take online payments. That's so weird. It's like my campaign is banned. So funny. I guess that's how they work. But don't worry, I'm going to fight it. And let's pretend that Frank LaRose or the GOP call on Daddy DeWine and they tell him, you better tell your son, Pat DeWine, to do something about this woman when she goes into the court with an emergency writ of mandamus, which I will win. But let's pretend, because I can see analytics, right? Predictive analytics, time travel. There's a 48% chance that they'll decline it. Well, guess what that means? If they want a circus, I've got the monkeys. We're going to the Supreme Court. I'm going to take it all the way up to the 6th district. I am going to embarrass every single GOP member out there, every single one of them. And I will get to the bottom of who had the decision. FOIA requests are always very, very open and efficient. So here's where the FOIA requests start flying out, asking, hey, who's the one that changed the regulations on the 2nd? And why did you say that? And hey, Amanda, what prompted you to send out that email. We'd like all the appropriate communications that will enlighten us, because we'd all like to know how you change the rules and move the goalposts. See, like others that have been through this road before, they're pretty sure that I'll roll over and leave it alone. And they also know that tomorrow is ding, ding, ding time with Dominion. Yes, because I am the only one right now in a federal courtroom suing Dominion. Huh. But you know, election integrity. So much for election integrity and transparency and being open to the public when you decide who's allowed to run and who's not. If you don't stand for anything, you will fall for everything. And you know, like I always say, they only look like giants because you're on your knees. It's time we stand up and show them who's really in charge.
That ant that stood up to me.
Yeah, but we can forget about him.
Yeah, it was just one ant. One ant.
Yeah, you're right. It's just one ant.
Yeah, boss, they're puny.
Puny? Say, let's pretend this grain is a puny little ant. Did that hurt?
Nope.
Well, how about this one?
Are you kidding?
Well, how about this?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
You're going to call us racist? You're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs? Fuck you. War.